Human trafficking is on the rise in South Africa, where several areas across Gauteng have been identified as hotspots for the recruitment of human trafficking victims.
Anywhere where there is opportunity, criminals will follow. We've got a massive crime problem, as we all know, in South Africa, and the police have many priorities.
A child goes missing approximately every 5 minutes in South Africa. According to the South African Police Service, of all the children who go missing, approximately 23% never make it home. These missing children are either found dead, never found with no explanation, or become a part of a growing issue in South Africa. With border control slowly failing, crime syndicates growing, and criminals escaping the legal system without consequence, child trafficking in South Africa is becoming a major problem. One where it's unclear which children are safe, which children are at risk, and whether more measures need to be taken to protect children. It's also unclear what happens to these children. In the next few minutes, I'm going to give you these answers, as well as expose the dangers lurking in plain sight.
It is as sinister as it gets, people buying or selling children for sex.
An awful situation.
In December of 2022, the South African government sent a warning to South African parents. They asked parents to be on the lookout for child snatchers who operated in public. A special operation called Operation Bobby Bear also outright said that children are being trafficked. Children would be taken by kidnappers, who would then deliver them to larger syndicates. These syndicates would then have the children transported across borders to other parts of Africa or to other parts of the world, where these children would then be used as resources. After that happens, it makes it very difficult to find them. Most law enforcement agencies only work within their area or country and have no jurisdiction in other countries. And while there are departments that communicate and work together with international law enforcement, the process can often be slow, leaving parents with little to no hope of finding their children before they are pushed into the child trafficking markets. While children in all provinces are at risk of being trafficked, some areas are more dangerous than others. According to Business Live, the province with the most risk of child trafficking as of January 2022 is Gauteng. However, following close behind is KwaZulu-Natal. This is a strange mix, and I can't find any apparent reason or link between the provinces, as Gauteng is one of the smallest provinces in the country, and KwaZulu-Natal is a major coastal city. However, this also serves to show us that we do not have all the information. We don't know why kidnappers are using these provinces, or how they get children out of the country. However, what we do know is these traffickers target the most vulnerable children. This can happen in a number of ways. One of these ways is that they spend time tracking these children, marking down their schedule, and then strike when the child is most unprotected. This can be when the child is walking to or from school, when they're on their way to meet their friends, or when their parents send them on errands. The second is more spontaneous, where child traffickers drive around public areas and then abduct children when their parents are distracted. Sometimes they can work in groups of 2 or more, where some of the traffickers distract the parents and others abduct the child. There is also a growing concern that children are being specifically targeted off social media. Although unconfirmed, this theory claims that traffickers look through social media to find information about a child that their parents may have posted. This can be their names, their locations, or even their schools. Adversely, another unconfirmed theory claims that traffickers look for children with specific traits, and that they have a list of these traits and how much each trait is worth in the markets. Finally, for a long time now, social media messaging has been used as a way to abduct children. However, in these cases, traffickers do not go to the location of the child, but instead use these messages to lead the child to them. One thing that should be noted is that there is no specific area that child trafficking happens in, as it can happen in both rural and urban areas. At this point, you may be wondering why a syndicate would want to traffic children? And the answer is fairly simple, because it pays a lot. The national coordinator for an organization called Missing Children South Africa says that job losses and poverty have driven people to desperation and therefore exploitation. So in order to survive, these people have resorted to selling their fellow human beings, assisting in the importing, kidnapping, selling, or even covering up the evidence of child trafficking. This brings up something quite troubling, as while law enforcement looks for syndicates and major organizations, child traffickers could be people that we know, people who have been driven to desperation, or people who want a quick payout. However, what's more troubling than the actual abduction of children is what happens to them after they are trafficked. Before I go on, if you feel like this video has added value to your life, please hit the subscribe button and the bell icon, as it's the best way to support the channel.
How do we arm ourselves against this happening, heaven forbid, to one of our children or those closest to us? Then the solution, I believe, starts with information and education. And
after a child is kidnapped, they are transported. Now, while a child can be trafficked within a country or taken outside, the next thing the trafficker will do is try to control the child. They do this as soon as possible, as if they can get the victim to listen to them, they have a better chance of controlling them, and it lessens the chance of them running away. Various forms of abuse are used, including verbal, physical, and even sexual. However, in many cases, traffickers also use substances like drugs and alcohol. Once the child is made to believe that no one will rescue them, and they listen to the kidnapper's every order, they are then exploited or sold. This can take many forms. The victim can be used in manual labor or sweatshops. They can also be sold to private owners or even become sex workers. The victims will then spend the rest of their lives in that position until the trafficker sees it fit to resell them or get rid of them. Another way victims can be used is for their body parts. Within many underdeveloped countries, there are evil witch doctors who use the body parts of adults and children to perform spells. However, these body parts can also be sold to illegal organ donor trades, where they will be put into people who need organs in underground operations. Sadly for these children, they are killed almost immediately, and the likelihood of their parents finding them reduces to almost zero. While the goal of law enforcement should be to stop trafficking, and I don't doubt that they are trying, in South Africa, the problem is only growing. I personally believe that this can be attributed to two things. The first is that when a child is initially abducted, it's hard to tell whether it's an actual case of child trafficking or the child was actually just kidnapped. In order to not cause panic, law enforcement won't classify a case as child trafficking until they've properly investigated. This means that by the time search parties are sent out, people close to the victim are investigated, and evidence is collected, the child could be long gone, shipped to another country or continent. By this point, it can already be too late, as law enforcement may not have jurisdiction in this new country. Which brings us to our second reason. These syndicates function on an international level, and as far as we know, have operations all around the world, which means that while different law enforcement agencies can work together to stop them, it's a very long process, with a number of approvals needed and investigations being taken up in a number of different countries. It also means that stopping one part of the syndicate doesn't mean stopping the entire syndicate. So if one base of operation is shut down, it can be opened in another part of the country or reopened in a completely different country. These syndicates are also growing, and the rise of child trafficking in South Africa is proof of that. If you allow me to go on a tangent really quickly, I'd like to explain that child trafficking has been a thing that's been around for thousands of years. However, back then, it was just considered slavery. These days, we call it child trafficking because we believe that everyone has the right to be free. The thing is that while we accept this as civilization, not every culture and religion accepts it. In some cultures and religions, especially those not allowed the advances of modern society, it's believed that it's okay to sell your children into the slave trade or even into child marriages. In these cases, the children don't get a say in what happens to them, and it's done so that the parents can pay their debts or avoid living in poverty. So not every case of child trafficking is because of kidnappings or abductions. Sometimes religions and cultures give their parents the right to do this to their children. I personally consider these people worse than any child trafficker that exists today.
This young lady was serving men in Atlanta. The infant was in the hotel room. She had gotten arrested, and when she was getting out of jail, she sent a tip to the aunt that had the infant and said, "My pimps told me I could get a good price for my baby. I'm coming for it."
As bad as child trafficking can be, protecting your children from it is fairly simple. It all hinges on creating an open and trusting relationship with your child. You need to create an environment where they trust you enough to tell you about the people that they spend time with. This includes their friends at school, the people they talk to online, as well as their friends' parents. You should also educate them on the dangers of trafficking and tell them about real cases that have occurred. However, do not use this as a way to try to scare them into staying safe. Scaring your child just pushes them away from you. This is because children start to develop independence at a young age and probably already think they know better than you. Your child should never be frightened of exploring, having fun, or just generally learning about the things around them. They should, however, know about when they've taken the explorations too far, which places are off limits to them, and which people they shouldn't be around. Finally, do not leave your child unattended in public areas, and keep an eye out for suspicious figures around you. While I can't cover very much in this video, I urge you to research ways to keep your child safe and put measures into place that will protect your family. While the world moves to becoming more civilized, criminal organizations move towards taking advantage of their fellow human beings. This leaves us in a position where people who once saw themselves as safe have to now take aggressive action to remain safe. Child trafficking syndicates are not going to stop anytime soon until major action is taken by international law enforcement. Unfortunately, I don't see them doing that. So taking action on your own may be the only option. Now I want to be clear, under no circumstances should you try to hunt down these organizations on your own. I don't condone witch hunts, as it may be dangerous to both you and innocent people you may falsely accuse. Instead, the best way to protect yourself is to defend yourself, either using some of the methods I mentioned earlier in the video, or thoroughly researching ways to stay safe using legitimate sources. I invite you to leave your opinion on the situation in the comments down below, as well as subscribe and hit the bell icon for more videos. Thank you for watching.